COVID-19 does not discriminate. We're learning that more and more as the weeks go on and stories of loss and suffering emerge.
Tonight, Fox 25's Emily Collins shares the story of a young, vibrant mom who lost her battle to the virus just 3 months before delivering her third child.
Lizzie was just full, really just full of life. It was all about family.
31 years old, a newlywed, and soon-to-be mother of 3. Lizzie Torres Sanchez is now a statistic of COVID-19.
She was kind of the glue that kind of brought the family together.
That glue was ripped apart by her death on July 31st. Her brother-in-law, Mark Ensko, says it's left the family in a haze and searching for answers.
It was on the 4th of July. They had had a get-together to celebrate my stepson's graduation from high school. And we believe that's where she got it.
Lizzie, who was 6 months pregnant at the time, and her husband Joey both came down with the virus. Lizzie ended up in a local emergency room twice, struggling to breathe. Both times she was sent home. When a third time came, staff at that same hospital decided she needed to be transferred to OU Medical.
So eventually Joey got really frustrated and took her himself, because they were supposed to transport her to OU Medical, but they couldn't find an ambulance available. So Joey drove her to OU Medical. And when she was at OU Medical, she seemed to be doing a little bit better.
But things took a turn a few days later. Lizzie slipped into a coma and lost her baby, but continued to hold strong. Her family left heartbroken, but hopeful she may pull through.
We got good news. It seemed like she was still pretty bad, in a bad shape. They said her lungs were like leather, they were completely whited out, but they thought that she was getting better, and it was very encouraging.
Lizzie passed 4 days later, leaving Joey, her family, and her 2 young children from a previous marriage alone and confused.
It was devastating. I got to be the bearer of bad news. I had to be the one to call her dad and tell her sister. I've never seen such overwhelming grief.
The family is now scrambling to ensure her children, 13-year-old Adrian and 7-year-old Kimberly, have the support they need to move forward. She was their primary provider, the one they called Mom, and the one everyone else called
Lizzie.
But no matter her name or the many hats she once wore, she'll forever be their angel. For Fox 25, I'm Emily Collins.
A GoFundMe has been set up to support Lizzie's children. You can find a link with more information on OKCFox.com.
In a world full of chaos, Danita Johnson brought hope.
I love you.
Her daughters Taylor and Kelsey,
There she is.
now grieving her loss, desperately trying to turn back the hands of time and embrace every moment they spent with her.
She was the sun, I think, that we all kind of rotated around. She made everyone feel special and welcome, and if you needed something, you could count on her. She was just kind.
Danita's life took an unexpected turn at the young age of 56 when she was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's.
She said nobody puts Danita in a corner, and hit her doctor on the knee, and that's really how she lived.
But for Taylor and Kelsey, the news proved harder to handle.
And I went into major denial. I was just like, nope, not my mom, not my mom.
But over the course of 6 years, Danita's prognosis gradually worsened, and that denial faded. Her family would eventually have no other choice but to put her in a nursing home. She remained in that home up until almost the very end, spending her final months on Earth in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic. For Taylor and Kelsey, this meant no more visits, hugs, or cuddles. In fact, the closest they could get to her was from the outside, looking in.
I told Kelsey on the day that they told us we couldn't visit anymore, I said, this will kill her.
We would go and see her through the window, but her interaction level was just not good. We knew her vision wasn't good either, so trying to get her attention through the windows. We looked a little crazy, but we would do anything for that mama, just like she would for us.
Danita was eventually moved into hospice care and took her final breaths 10 days later on May 30th. Fortunately, at a time in the pandemic when family and friends could gather to say their final goodbyes.
She was stubborn, so we thought there was just no way she was going to go out without being able to have her life celebrated, so she rebounded in a miracle fashion and held on until May.
Taylor and Kelsey are now left clinging to only memories, but they know that when times get tough and there's nowhere else to turn, they'll find her in the sunset.
Please don't take my sunshine away.
In Oklahoma City, Emily Collins, Fox 25 News.
Ravaged by COVID-19, a Moore family is now struggling to move forward. They lost their parents to the virus just weeks apart. Fox 25's Emily Collins shares their journey from health to horror.
That's how my parents were. They just showed unconditional love.
Donald and Moochaw Gannon were the definition of together. Their love story began 56 years ago.
They were the glue that held our family together.
And ended in the ICU unit of a Norman hospital via FaceTime.
To watch her, like say goodbye to her husband of 56 years over FaceTime, and then lay in the bed afterwards crying, brokenhearted, sick with COVID, and not able to go in there and just love on her.
Donald and Moochaw's journey through life took them all over the world, but their love for travel is what unfortunately put them in harm's way.
And we found this wayward traveler.
Both tested positive for COVID following a trip to Alaska in July.
My mom called us and she said, your dad and I are positive. And my heart just sank, because I was like, and I was like, okay, it's gonna be okay, because they're still talking, they're manageable, they're just gonna be sick, but it will be okay.
Days after Donald died, Moochaw's health slowly declined. She was transferred to a different hospital where her family would eventually gather. To say their final goodbyes.
Just for my mom to hold my hand and play all of her favorite songs and just to be there with her. And her will came back, but the complications were too much for her little body.
But for the family, spending those last moments with loved ones was sometimes a struggle. They were met with frustration when the couple were admitted into the hospital. Communication was limited, and once Donald was sedated, they were left to guessing and pleading with his doctors to let them in. By the time they did, it was too late.
We fought because we wanted to be there when his heart quit beating.
The family is now urging others to do the same.
We feel like with my dad especially, like we didn't get to advocate for him as much, and like he died, we feel like alone.
And if they could have been there, Moochaw and Donald's love story might have a much different ending.
We want people to know that there is a face with COVID.
Part of curing somebody isn't just pumping them full of medicine.
To say we are devastated is an understatement.
For Fox 25, I'm Emily Collins.
The family is now urging hospitals and other medical facilities to reevaluate their visitation policies. OU updated theirs just last week. Now, 2 visitors are allowed at the Children's Hospital at the same time. 1 visitor is allowed in the main hospital and at OU Medical in Edmond if an adult is in emergency or acute care.